On this edition of the Roundball Report, we'll discuss the Sweet 16 for men and women, and we'll discuss the college coaching changes, as well as the week that was in the NBA for the Washington Wizards and the rest of the NBA, with two Roundball Report favorites. Former University of California and Morgan State University coach Todd Bozeman, who's now a color analyst for the HBCU Go Network, and our very own, the Roundball Report's very own Sterling Savoy. So sit back, relax, get ready for your weekly dose of serious hoop talk, because the Roundball Report is next. Hello, I'm Andrew Dyer, and welcome to another edition of the Roundball Report, the only show in the area dedicated to highlighting the exploits of the high school, college, and professional basketball teams which play in the Washington metropolitan area. And unfortunately, neither of my co-hosts, Janae Hayes nor Nikki Lewis, can make it here tonight, but the ladies will return as soon as the schedule permits. We're going to get things started tonight as we're going to discuss the NCAA tournament. March Madness is in full effect as we're going to discuss the Sweet 16 for men and women. And here with us to do so are two Roundball Report favorites. Former University of California and Morgan State University coach Todd Bozeman, who's now a color analyst for the HBCU Go Network, and our very own man that can do it all, our producer, director, and now analyst, Sterling Savoy. Gentlemen, welcome back to the Roundball Report.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Always a pleasure. Bose, let's get started with the Sweet 16. And on a personal note, this is where you made your name. It's hard to believe. 30 years ago, you guys made it to the Sweet 16. Share with us what it was like to participate in that reunion. I saw you posting on Facebook.
You know, you're right. It was 30 years ago, and that's where I cut my teeth. And it's funny because, you know, we were all in our 20s. Mm-hmm. So as a coach, I was in my 20s, and the players were in their 20s. They were in the early 20s, and I was on the tail end of my 20s, so at 29, and it was a great time. It was one of those situations where we bonded. We had a lot of adversity that season, and we just bonded. And it was us against the world. And the guys came together, and we had a lot of fun. It was really great to see some of those guys. I hadn't seen them since I left Cal, or since they left Cal. Some of them graduated, so I hadn't seen them in like 30 years. So it was really, really great, and it was a special deal. And when those guys called me and told me that they wanted to do something like that, I told them right away. I said, "Oh, I'm all in. It's no doubt about it. I'm all in." So it was a great ride, and we had a tremendous amount of fun. And Cal kind of views that group as the group that kind of jump-started Cal basketball back to a national scene. Obviously, they won a championship in 1959, and none of us here right now were around at that time. Well, maybe, Drew, you might have been. I don't know.
Not quite.
but that group and those two classes kind of jump-started things for Cal basketball, and they're in a situation now where they're looking to rebuild it and get it back to where it once was.
Well, Coach, bringing it to the modern day tournament, you've coached not that long ago. The distance between the mid majors or low majors and the big majors is getting smaller and smaller with this transfer portal, as we had for the second time in history on the men's side, a Sweet 16 a 16 seed Fairleigh Dickinson knock off a number 1 seed Purdue in the first round.
Wasn't it exciting though? I mean, it's just exciting when you see a team that's against the odds, and I know what that feels like. So to see a team against the odds and to come together like that and to have such a special moment, I think the NCAA tournament is the greatest sporting event in this world, because you come together and it's anybody can beat anybody on one given night, and you have a team like Purdue that have been ranked for umpteen amounts of weeks in the AP poll or in the top 20 poll, and then they go down on their first night and they have one of maybe the college player of the year. So it's something special. And I can tell you that you mentioned the portal. It's not just a portal. The portal is definitely a factor because now guys can transfer and play right away. but it's also you have to factor in that COVID year because that COVID year is still in effect. You got one more year, so that the COVID babies, so to say, and I probably shouldn't say it that way, but the COVID group that gets an extra year, college players, all college athletes got an extra year. So it's not just basketball, but all college players got a extra year. So now guys are stronger, older, more experienced, and that's what you're seeing in the tournament. And so now that affords a team like Kansas State to build a roster that was basically empty. And he put together a roster, and he had some guys that were older. The young man from Florida that transferred in, who had sat out a year, and then he got the COVID year. So you're talking about older teams. Even that Fairleigh Dickinson team, those guys were Division II guys, hungry players. When guys come from a lower level, they're hungry. They've spent their whole career trying to prove to everybody that, hey, man, I could play at that level. I just didn't get a chance. Well, now they got the chance, and they got it on a big stage and cashed in big time. It was exciting.
Sterling and Purdue wasn't the only number one seed not to make it to the second weekend, as Kansas was knocked off and by Arkansas, and that's about the second straight year that they've not made it to the Sweet 16, and I think they made it to the Elite Eight last year. What's been your thought on the men's tournament so far?
It's been a lot of madness. They call it March Madness for a reason. It felt like it got started off with Furman knocking off Virginia. And then we saw Princeton making it all the way to the Sweet 16. And, of course, we had FDU. They pretty much made the splash, becoming the second Sweet 16, the second 16 seed team to knock off a 1 seed, joining UMBC. So a little love to UMBC. I'm a Baltimore guy, so I got to show them a little love down there. But it was great, man. It was great basketball. Even from, Maryland, that first game they played, it was an amazing game. They had, pretty much toughened it out. And just a lot of teams that can possibly win it all. I mean, you still have Alabama in the tournament. Tom Izzo, Izzo, he's still in there. He can make a splash. It's a lot of teams. Duke got knocked off. I feel like a lot of people, I think I picked on last week's show that Duke was going to make it to the Final Four. So a lot of upsets. I think the people got what they wanted, and it's March Madness.
And Todd, you had powerhouses like Arizona get knocked off in the first round, Virginia, as you mentioned, and then Duke, a team that was hot, but they were a young team, and they faced a Tennessee team, like you said, that was veteran. They've been through the rigors of the Southeastern Conference, and they handled Duke pretty easily.
None of that surprises me. I mean, none of it, because just because, like we talked about earlier, about the portal and guys being older and stronger. I mean, Tennessee, they just pretty much manhandled Duke. I mean, it was like they sunned them, as they used to say back in the day. They just sunned them. You know how when you either the older kids did it to you or you did it to the younger kids, and you kind of mushed them. They just kind of mushed them and said, "Man, come on, man, get back." Like, they're talented, but they're not. They weren't ready for Tennessee. I mean, those are all highly touted players and very, very highly skilled players, but there's a physicality, there's a mental part to the game. And, as they always say, the game is really is 80% mental and 20% physical. So as you get older, just like Andrew, when you got older and you stopped playing ball in school, you went on the playground and you were a better player because you accepted the fact that you weren't going to be jumping up and dunking the ball over everybody. So you had to outthink them. So that's where you had your advantage. And so, and now with the portal and guys being older, they're using all of that to their advantage. So I think it's great. I agree with Sterling. It's great. And it is I'm definitely not surprised by Arizona, Duke, and some of the bigger name schools being knocked out. And also, another factor is the fact that these kids all play against each other all summer in the different tournaments. And so they're all familiar with them. It used to be a time, particularly when I was coming in. Now, I know that was a long time ago, but the stars were guys that you really didn't get a chance to rub shoulders with and play against in the AAU tournaments because there weren't that many AAU teams. I know it was only one here in the DC area. And so if you didn't make that team, you didn't travel around and you didn't get to see those guys up close and personal. Well, now these guys are all playing against each other. You have Twitter, you have all the social media that exposes you to those guys. So they're getting familiar with them. They're studying guys on film more than ever now. So they're getting more comfortable. So that intimidating factor is gone. That making guys stars and untouchable, those days are over.
Well, Sterling, Princeton also pulled off not just one surprise, but two. And that's what I like about the teams that make the upsets is they're not satisfied with just knocking off one team. Fairleigh Dickinson, they lost to Florida Atlantic, and that was two Cinderellas going at it. Yeah. And Princeton, they blew out their second round opponent. Do you think that they have a legitimate chance? Well, who do you, of the remaining field, who do you like making it to the Final Four and eventually cheering down the nest? I'll start with you, Sterling.
Well, my favorite to win it all is Alabama. As far as the rest of the bracket, let me go ahead and do a quick little research real quick. I like the way that I like the UCLA coming out the West. I like UCLA coming out the West. Houston, I like Houston a lot. I'm not sure if their starting point guard is back just yet. If he's
he played in the second
okay, round. If he's playing, then yes, I like them coming out the Midwest. Tennessee, I think like Coach Bowles said, they pretty much sun Duke. So I feel as though they're going to do that again once they go up against FAU because, like you said, FAU and FDU, they were pretty much two Cinderella teams. FAU just got their first tournament win in the round of 64. So I expect Tennessee to come out of there in the Elite Eight. And I expect Alabama, like I said, to pretty much come out and win the entire thing. But my sleeper team is Tom Izzo and Michigan State. I don't know. I just think he's a Grizzly veteran coach. He's been here a lot. He knows what to do in these certain situations. I just feel as though he can outcoach a lot of these other coaches that he's going to go up against.
What about you?
Sterling, that's five teams. Now,
I know. Listen, Andrew threw me on the spot. He didn't tell me we had to pick the rest of the Final Four. So
yeah, it's not a new tournament. Like it's only four that get to the.
Listen, Andrew, he threw me on the loop. I had to pick up the bracket and everything. We want to clean it up. I'm gonna go ahead. UCLA. I'm going Houston. I'm going Tennessee, and I'm going Alabama.
Okay, so the Cinderellas make it somewhat to the point, but you got the Bluebirds make it to the Final Four. What about you, Bose?
You know what? I like those picks there because I like Houston and Alabama in the finals, but I like Tennessee and I like Gonzaga. So those are my Final Four picks. But I think you can go either way with Houston or Alabama. I love the way Houston, they dictate the tempo. They force you to play. If you're not ready to play at their tempo, they're saying, so what? You're going to have to strap them up and play or we're going to eat you alive. And Kelvin Sampson his teams have always played like that. When I was coaching at Cal, he was coaching at Washington State. His teams played the same way. Then he went into Oklahoma and went to Indiana. His teams played the same way. So I don't see them doing anything different. He's a very intentional guy and resilient, and that's how his teams play. Alabama, it wouldn't surprise me. They're so long and athletic, and somebody had said something like they're like Noah's Ark. They have two of everything. Those guys are super long and super athletic, and I think Brandon Miller is the best player in college basketball. I mean, he's an outstanding player. I know that they're talking about someone else as Edie as the player of the year, but my player of the year is Brandon Miller. He's just a phenomenal talent. And then Tennessee, we spoke about them earlier. Their physicality, their experience, their toughness. I think it just wears you down. And then Gonzaga, you could actually toss it up UCLA, Gonzaga. I'm not mad at you, Sterling, for picking UCLA. I just probably have a thing in my heart because of my affinity for Cal. That it probably would hurt me to actually root for UCLA.
At least you're being honest.
Yeah. But I think Gonzaga. I think that they've done a phenomenal job in overcoming some setbacks this year in terms of St. Mary's made a rise in the league and said, hey, we're no longer going to be the second sister or the second sibling in this league. We want to be the top in the league and made a statement. but then Gonzaga responded to it and won their conference tournament. So I think that they're right on time and peaking right at the right time.
Well, guys, I'm going to call an audible this March Madness. We went through the first segment, and all we did was get to our Final Four and U2 selections. We're going to stick with college basketball on the other side. We're going to talk about the coaching changes, guys that have parlayed the NCAA tournament, a success of smaller schools, the bigger jobs. And we're going to talk about the ladies tournament. If we have time, we'll talk about the Wizards and the NBA with Todd Bozeman and Sterling Savoy on the other side. So stay with us.
Last week, Brandon met a girl on a dating app. One day after work, he finally found the courage to ask her out. No answer. He started to panic. Was he being too pushy? Maybe it was too...
Hey, sorry I didn't respond. I was driving. I would love to go on a date. How does tonight sound?
Brandon tried to play it cool, but inside he knew. A girl so smart, so responsible. She must be a keeper.
Welcome back, and now we're going to continue our discussion of the men's NCAA tournament and talk about the impact that the tournament has had on coaching selections. Those teams that didn't make it and teams that have had success, those coaches have landed big jobs. And remaining with us to stay with to discuss that are Todd Bozeman of the HBCU Go Network and Sterling Savoy of the Roundball Report. Gentlemen, Todd, you know what this is like. Guys, they say the guys get hired to get fired. Let's start at home here. Patrick Ewing, who actually took the Georgetown program from a mid-major to a national under the legendary coach John Thompson II. He got fired after a 6-year reign in Georgetown. Never really did have much success. They had that one Cinderella run as they won the Big East tournament as the last seed, but never lived up to expectations. And he's been replaced by Ed Cooley, who leaves the helm of Providence to come to Georgetown. Do you think it's that the history of Georgetown and that Nike money that lured Ed to take another job in the same conference?
Well, first, let me say that I was rooting for Patrick, and I think Patrick, he's a tremendous person and obviously an outstanding player, both at the high school, college, and the NBA levels. And I wanted him to do well, and hopefully he gets another opportunity to do it again. But it was time to make a change over there, and I think that Ed Cooley, looking at the two situations, people would say that, hey, he's taking Providence to a certain level. Sometimes you can overstay your welcome. So some coaches are very sensitive to that. And so he was there for 12 years, had a tremendous amount of success. Although it took him a while, he did get to a certain level. But Georgetown name is a national name. It's a national brand. You feel like you can win a national championship if you're successful at Georgetown. You know, there's someone once said that college basketball is not the same if Georgetown isn't winning or isn't up at the top. And we all know, coming from the area, that Georgetown is a brand itself. So I think that it makes sense for him to take and make that move to go to Georgetown. He did all I think he could do at Providence, and he's a local guy. I know it was emotional for him to make that move because he's from there. He was a hometown boy that did good and took his team to a certain level. But, man, baby, this is Georgetown. Like, what are we talking about here? This is Georgetown. And the other thing is, it's in the mecca of basketball. Mm-hmm. It's in the mecca. It's no area has the combination of high school, AAU, basketball in the country. I mean, I'll say this to anybody, and I had this conversation with anybody. You look at the AAU teams in the area; they all have had success. All age groups. Last summer, all 4 or 5 of the teams at each level either participated in the championship or won a championship, and that's with the men and the women. So this is a basketball heaven here, and you have all this right at your beck and call. Is this a matter of whether you can reach out and grab them before Maryland does, or before any of the other Big East schools, ACC schools, the Big Ten, the Big Ten, the Atlantic 10? All the schools are represented in the DC area. I mean, it's phenomenal. I think Ed is a great choice. He has the personality, the charisma. He could talk to people. He could talk to anybody. I think he's going to blend with all the AAU guys, and I think it's going to be a home run for Georgetown.
And Sterling, sticking with that conference, what was traditionally known as the Mecca, New York City, they brought back a legend in Rick Pitino as the helm of St. John's, and 70 years old, signed a 6-year contract. What's your thought about what he can do if he can return St. John's to glory, because they were part of that '80s machine before you were born, Sterling, with Georgetown and St. John's and the Big East.
I think Rick Pitino is a great hire. He recently had success with Louisville not too long ago. He's proven that he can coach guys to the NBA level. Like Coach Bowles was saying, just about, Georgetown in the DMV area is the Mecca, and also New York is the Mecca. St. John's is a proud program, and I feel as though having a big time coach like that will bring in a lot of recruits. So I think that's a great hire, along with the Ed Cooley hire. That's a guy who's been coaching in the D1 level for pretty much almost 30 years. He has a great record. I believe he's the reigning, or he was the Naismith Coach of the Year of last year. So I just think two great hires for two great storied programs in college basketball. So I'm excited.
Can we talk about the fact that Texas hasn't hired my man Rodney Terry as the head coach? It's crazy how they continue to move the goalposts for black coaches. I mean, he won the Big 12 tournament. He finished second in the Big 12, which some say is the best conference in the country this year. Mm-hmm. And how do you not reward this man with the head coaching title and remove the interim title from his name? It's crazy. And then the whispers were, well, he has to win 2 games. How do you move the goalposts? It's like they saying, it's first and you just have 5 to go. And then when you get the 5, they go, you know what? We're sorry. It was 10 more yards you have to go. So they moved the goalposts, and now they say they got to win 2 games. Well, guess what? He won 2 games. Now what? What are we talking about here? He was a coach there before. He was a coach there 9 years with Rick Barnes. So he already has experience with being at Texas. He's been a head coach at 2 other Division I programs. He came there from a head coaching position, not because he lost, but because he came there to help Chris Beard. Now, that's a whole nother story, which I'm sure we don't have time for. But I just the fact that they haven't given him that job yet is crazy to me, because he clearly has earned it. He's recruited. He continued to recruit. His players love him, and you see it when you watch his team play.
Well, guys, that says it. There's Micah Shrewsbury. They say is leaving Penn State to go to Notre Dame. So, and the Fairleigh Dickinson coach is replacing Pitino at Iona. So it's that time of year, and it normally happens at the Final Four. But these moves are being made as soon as teams leave the tournament.
Absolutely. Those dominoes are falling, and they're falling fast. I mean, they're just, I will give ADs credit for being able to make fast moves, because they're going, hey, this is the guy I want, and this is what I want to do. So, I'm all for it. Guys being able to get other opportunities and move up in the ranks, or move to where they feel is best for them and their families. I think Michael Shrewsbury going to Notre Dame is great for him. He waited a long time for his opportunity, and he took advantage of it at Penn State, and now he's going to Notre Dame. That's great.
Well, guys, let's switch it over to the ladies' side, and it's South Carolina. Are we taking South Carolina or the field?
Let me hear somebody take somebody other than South Carolina. Let me say something. Dawn Staley is the deal. You hear me? She is the deal, from how she carries herself, how she represents herself, her people, her team, her university, her city, North Philly, not North, but North Philly, NORL. I mean, Dawn is the deal. She's the deal. I mean, if there was ever a woman's coach that would coach the guys, I would say Dawn would be that person. I mean, I just love her style, her vibe, everything about it, and what she represents. I mean, for her to wear the Cheney State jersey on the sideline coaching during the tournament, I mean, come on, Dawn is like the deal. I'm glad to see they're giving her commercials. Now she's getting the national commercials with Nick Saban and where Deion used to be at. I mean, it's tremendous. I mean, South Carolina is outstanding, but I will say that the tournament has been fun to watch, and it's been some great games. They've gone down to the wire. You've had some last second shots there that have made the tournament really, really exciting. I mean, that game with Miami and Indiana was tremendous, and I just know there's going to be more to come.
And Sterling, traditionally the powerhouses have kind of been chalk on the women's side, but we've had 2 number 1 seeds on the women's side in Indiana, and who was the other one that didn't make it?
Stanford.
And Stanford. I know that broke your heart. Did not make it to the second weekend. And talk about the job. Let's bring it back home. I feel bad that Maryland got put in the same bracket to get to the Final Four with South Carolina, but Brenda Freeze to lose 6 of her top 7 players to just start from scratch, along with Diamond Miller, a WNBA player, but to have this Maryland team playing like she is, and Sterling, we'll just talk about the impact of what Brenda has done and the fact if she has any chance at all against South Carolina.
This is definitely one of Brenda's greatest coaching jobs. Like you said, losing 6 of her top players. Diamond Miller, she's been fantastic. I believe she had 24 points in her last game, couple good block shots. Maryland may have a chance. Now, like Coach said, it's pretty much South Carolina on the field. I do have 2 sleeper teams that possibly could get it done. I will go with Maryland. Maybe I'm just being a homer. Brenda Free, she's a great coach. Diamond Miller, of course, we just talked about her. And I'm going to go with LSU. Angel Reese is a monster. She had 25
Where's she
points.
from?
She's from Baltimore, Maryland. Yes, sir. And I don't know what happened. I don't know why, she had to, transfer from Maryland. Maybe y'all have more insight on that than I do. But listen, she's a monster. 25 points, 24 boards. I believe she had, 3 blocks, or 6 blocks, 3 steals. She was pretty much facilitating the game. I'll give her a slight chance. But I'm going with Dawn Staley. It's pretty much her time to run the game. Just like how Gino Uriema had his time to run it, I think it's Dawn Staley's time.
It's Dawn's time for sure. I like how you said that to represent Baltimore in there, be more in the house. Angel Reese, she's definitely a tremendous player, and I'm sure that if she had a chance to play against Maryland, it would be, she wouldn't need any extra motivation there at all. I love the tournament though. I think it's great. How about the DC area? We're talking about the Mecca of basketball, and New York is no longer the Mecca. So let's make sure we clear that up. It's no more the Mecca for basketball. DC is, the DMV is. And
something in the water.
Something is in the water. Something is in the food. Something is in the air, baby. That's just how it is. But you got Fudd at UConn, and you got the young lady from Sidwell Friends at UCLA, and it's just outstanding. And you already mentioned Reese. Now we're gonna give it to her because we know she's from Baltimore. So Sterling, I understand, but she played at Maryland, and she's close enough to the area. We're gonna pull her in.
Yes, sir.
All right, guys. So let's so Todd, what do you seen a situation like that? It's been a history of Brenda not changing, but she's adapted her style and was playing a pressing style. But one of the reasons I heard that Angel Reese left is she was the number 2 recruit behind Paige Beckers the year she came out, and said she was not getting the NIL deals, and she felt that going to LSU would give her a prompt chance to shine. And by the way she's putting up, she's becoming an All-American. I guess you say she made the right. That situation that worked. It's hard to say losing an All-American worked out well for you, but both teams are still alive in the Sweet 16.
Hey, listen, players transfer all the time. Happens all the time. Just like coaches leave programs. It's just a part of the deal. And now with the NIL, hey, more power to the players to be able to receive compensation and be able to get paid for their name, image, and likeness. It's only fair. And chapters in books end. So that her chapter at Maryland ended, and she started another one at LSU. Hey, more power to her. I'm happy for her. That's what this whole process is about. People have been able to do it forever. So now college athletes are able to do it and to be compensated for it as well.
All right, you guys should be compensated for what you've done. I'm going to double what I normally give you. That's going to do it for this edition. I know you enjoyed it. It was informative and action-packed. And you can look forward for more discussion of the NCAA tournament, late season action for the NBA, special features and interviews with the players and coaches from the high school, college, and professional basketball teams in the metropolitan area and future shows. And remember, if it's happening on the court, we'll definitely be around the ball. And for all of you aspiring basketball stars out there, don't ever forget that focusing on your education is the first step towards making your hoop dreams come true. So until next time, for my co-hosts, Shanae Hayes and Nikki Lewis, I'm Andrew Dyer for the Roundball Report. Good night.